Now, some people are spending a lot of time on the dark web, and they say, I don't know, I've never been there, they say that this is where you can buy weapons, this is where you can buy all kind of sex, and this is where they're doing just all kind, I don't know, this is what they say to me. I've never been there. But it dawned on me, wait a minute, well, you know, who do they say created the internet? Not the government.
When did it
Military.
It was Al Gore.
Huh?
It was Al Gore who said he invented the internet, but it was actually military.
military? I thought it was the military.
Military-based.
Well, what I'm trying to get you to go to, you know, is somebody, yeah, and I think his name is a public name. I can't call it this minute. That's what I was trying to get you to call this guy's name, who's actually the one who created the right, and he had all of the satellites available to him through the government. He may have not been a government official, but a government contractor. But he had all of the government satellites and other things that he could connect to. He had that at his disposal, and so he then really was the creator. And you can look his name up. It's not a secret. He's the creator of the
internet.
He's the what?
Creator.
What's his name?
Robert E. Kahn.
Robert
Something like
E. What?
that. It's not finishing. Robert E. Kahn. K-A-H-N.
K-A-H-N. That's what I'm looking for. And he was a contractor, not a government employee. But watch this right here, a government military person. Well, watch this right here. Robert E. Kahn is the
Creator.
Say it louder than that.
Creator.
Robert E. Kahn is the creator of the entire internet. Now the entire internet has caused the world to become this much smaller place than it ever was, because you can communicate instantaneously through the
Internet.
that the Creator gave us, but for some reason he only gave us the
Good web.
and we really are kind of like the public per se. The public. Say the public.
Public.
Well, if this is the public, and the Creator gave us something
Good.
wait a minute, then the
Creator.
also created the
Dark web.
and who did he give that to?
Private.
Ah, that's good, son. This is private. Say private.
Private.
This is
Public.
this is
Private.
given by the
Creator.
for the entire
World.
the part of it that we know, we're trying to use it for the
Good.
Now, we done even some ways we done flip the script and start talking about our family and shaking our all these old kind of things that maybe don't necessarily need to be on the
Internet.
in the internet. But Creator here has given you a will to create and put on there whatever you want to put on there. And if you say it's good, then it's good based on your perception or your perspective. Say my perspective.
My perspective.
That's so good. Your perspective is how you see things. That's right. How you see things has everything to do with the people around you, people who saw it before you. Whew, that's good. Hey, T. Yes, sir. Your perspective is the way you see things. Say, my perspective.
My perspective
is the way I see things.
Is the way I see things.
And I see things. Come on.
And I see things.
The way the people who saw it before me saw it.
the way
The people who saw it before me saw it.
watch this now. So if you believe that, then you will recognize, Manny Moore, that your son is demonstrating a particular perspective that you're unhappy with. But he is doing things that he saw others do before him. Watch this carefully. And now he's already entertaining the system. He's experiencing the principal's office or expulsion or suspension and these other kind of system-orientated things. I'm going to go just a little bit deeper here. This is the cradle to the prison pipeline already shaping itself up, and you want to talk him out of it, but you may not want to live the good side of the web in front of the public to change his perspective and the way he sees things, and he can't make a change because he's become a slave and imprisoned by what other people have shown him.
It's all right.
I don't hear nobody in this church. And so watch this now. Watch this carefully. So just like I was trying to show you over here, the shadow. This is really me. This is the shadow me. See, and so your son right now, I'm just taking him as an example. I just want you to know I was listening to you. Your son is operating as a shadow. He hasn't developed himself well enough to be him. What's his name?
Marnell.
What?
Marnell.
Parnell?
Marnell.
Marnell. Mar with an M.
Marnell.
Marnell.
You from down south, boy?
Oh,
my. Watch it. Marnell hasn't been alive. How old was he?
8.
Look. Marnell's only 8. So he really has an undeveloped perspective on anything.
Right.
However, he has been a
Slave.
and in prison
Uh-huh.
by what he saw from you. Don't be mad at me.
Uh-huh.
Don't be mad at me. And so consequently, he is finding himself at 8 years old in the dark web.
wow.
Preach. Watch, I'm just going to show you something. And look, I don't even know how to get to the dark web.
Uh-huh.
Watch this. Oh, don't be mad. Don't be mad.
That's all right. Bring it.
I'm just trying to help you see something so important. A little James Jeffries, lives over at the Pop House. I wish he would be here because I'm getting ready to blast him here. This is love, though. Well, sometimes I come to the house, he playing his music so loud. Wow. And sometimes if it's if it's a nice song,
He might let it go.
but they talking about I said, brother, tell that would you that. Seemed like to me all of that stuff came from the
Dark web.
like from the dark web. And you bless me. Because listen to what I'm saying to you. I don't want to be victimized by those words of death and darkness, but I want to live in the land of the living, in the light, in the good light. I want to live in it. Say live.
Live.
Yeah, I want to live in it, not exist as a shadow in spite of it. Huh? And so, wait a minute. Now, maybe if that is 20,000 foot level, let me bring it right down here on the level that you on. Can I do it? I can't hear nobody.
Come on.
Oh, you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, watch this. So now, then here we are. Majority of us are trying to work out our way out of the
Dark web.
Well, what do we mean by that? Because over here, we have a felony and we have these different kind of crimes, and we have all these checks against us and all these strikes that say we can't, and sometimes we lack education or we lack experience, right, and on and on and on. We don't know the right contacts. See, watch this. So watch all of this. All of these are strikes, it would appear, that would cause you to be stuck, John Vang, in the
Dark web.
Wait a minute, but I got news for them over there on the dark side.
Right.
That when you become conscious,
That's it.
watch this now.
That's the key.
Conscious is the word conscience. When you become conscious of what is taking place in front of you, then you can make a personal, empowered decision about whether or not this or this belong to you. Until that time, you will remain trapped in the prison of your own thinking that you have adopted from somebody else.
Uh-huh.
Come on. Make it plain.
I'm just gonna tell about myself because, you know, I don't wanna, you know. But I remember, so when I was younger, I told y'all this before I was raised by my grandparents, or older. Well, my mom, she was a hooker. My mom was beautiful. You know, I mean, my mom was drop dead gorgeous. This striking woman. And even as a son, I could somehow see her outside of just being my mom. And I could say, man, my mom is beautiful. But my mom was a hooker. And so when I came up, my mom, I didn't never see her. I didn't never see my mom. I just wanted to see her face. I just wanted to see her face. And she would hug me just so. And there was a way about her hugging me that made me know I was her and she was me.
That's all right.
But my mom was actually deciding for me in a good way that she did not want me to be a part of the
Dark web. Uh-huh.
I'm gonna show you something though. I'm gonna show you something. Historically, my mom was born in the 30s. Times were different. The history was different than when I came through. These guys had even far more limited choices
That's right.
about what they were going to do and not do. How to make ends meet were socially acceptable. Some of the hustling activities of that day were seen as acceptable because life was so hard historically in that time, 30s and 40s, and they just couldn't, you know, they just needed to scrape anything together, right? But I'm gonna tell you now, even though my grandmother and grandfather were working, they were on the
Good web.
they lived their life in the daytime in the
Public.
I loved them and I was impacted by them, but what I lusted for was my mama. And my mama was in the
Dark web.
And so sometimes I would go and look
That's right.
for my mama.
Wow.
And you know, in some cases that I wouldn't find her, but I found some other people along the way that began to influence me, and people who began to say, ain't you know, I know who you are. You so and so. You such and such. And they started to give me a name
Yes.
that was synonymous with the dark web, not my real name,
right.
who I am right now.
Yes.
Brother Shane Martin Price is addressing you on today.
Yes.
Wait, I'm going to tell you something else. Don't be mad. I'm a bad man.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'll tell you something else. I had to shake all of this so John Vang could stand up and get to 10,000 just the other day. I'm telling you, wait a minute. I'm just telling you right now. Wait a minute. I sat there in front of him, the sharpest Negro in the place. And I sat there in front of him, my son, and I watched them give him $10,000.
Yes.
And I'm telling you now, hey, you know what? Y'all should be clapping louder than that for the $10,000.
Yeah.
You can't be up here be mad if you can't be happy for him getting his 10. You can't get nobody to shout for yours.
Uh-huh.
But I realized, man, I said, oh, I looked up here and said, if I can't identify this information correctly, I will be doomed to a life of slavery and imprisonment in the dark web. I'm telling you now, I spent a good 20-some years in there. Looking initially for my mama, but ultimately for myself.
Oh, that's it.
Watch this carefully now. And I'm telling you now, until you grapple with this well enough to discover your true self, it makes getting rid of drugs and alcohol so much more difficult, because you're only looking for sobriety. But what I'm telling you is so much more powerful than sobriety.
That's right.
Sobriety can't stand up against what I'm telling you you're looking for. So sobriety can't match it. Sobriety would be only an adjective to a much more
That's good,
powerful
boy.
sentence and a statement
Yes.
that expresses a fact about who you really are, whose you really are, and what you're supposed to really be doing, and that you really don't have no business over here on the
Dark side.
That's it. That's it.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Man. Amen.
I
Hallelujah.
went one day, didn't have no idea I was going to do this, but me and Darius was going to meet Will over at Will's job site. You know, I didn't know what to really expect. I hadn't seen his work in a while, you know, and I had been, you know, kind of secretly fussing with Will about going back to college, because he's a smart man, and I know that. And you know what? I went over to his work site, and Will, he gave me a hard hat, me and Darius, and he took me through this house that they had completely gutted. I mean, completely gutted. Took out cement, there wasn't no floors, nothing, took out everything, and rebuilt the whole house. And the house was banging. And I realized, I looked at Will and I said, man, look what God done did. What has come out of him. Wait a minute. Liberated from the
Dark
Yep.
Wait a minute, made a conscious decision to go in here and sift through the negative information.
Right.
All the people in the penitentiary were saying, you're never getting out. You know, he's related to you, so he can't come home. You can't do this. You can't that. You're going to never get out of the penitentiary. And here I'm standing in a house that he done built up inside the guts. All that was left was the hull. They built the whole house. And I'm thinking to myself, look at this. As you stood before the group at St. Paul College, and you standing where you standing, and Jory, you're doing what you're doing, and you hear John McNair saying what John McNair is saying, not being defeated by the slavery or the imprisonment of what somebody else said was you.
That's right.
Y'all don't hear me here.
Yes, sir.
You have to make up your own mind about who you are. Wait a minute, I'm gonna go one more deep. Can I go?
All right.
I'm
Watch out
almost done.
now.
I'm almost done. You can't let or be satisfied with your woman or your wife defining who you are. Because quite often your woman or wife will have got with you or married you for what she saw in you for later, not just for what you presented on that day. And a lot of times your helpmate can see something in you that you fail to observe on your own. And in the context of that failure, sometimes we get too comfortable with what she thought she saw, and we become lazy and lethargic about what we're doing. Ends up she's doing all the work, she's paying all the bills, she's taking all the responsibility, and you don't realize the very thing that you love will have to propel itself away from you. I'm trying to help you now. It'll propel itself away from you, not because it doesn't love you, but because it finally realized the dreamer is never going to wake up and do anything that he dreamed about. She will help you. She will stand with you. Others will come around you. Others will begin to support you. That's why they stood up for you at the job site. But if you stay in dream state too long, you become lethargic. You accept your role as a slave. You are operating inside of the prison of your own mind. And the dream is the best we're going to get out of here. Somebody say church. I'm going to show you something. They say, well, yeah, this is the prison. They say we don't give you all of the guys with mental health issues.
Right.
We're gonna give you the guys with no education.
Yeah.
We're gonna give you the guys that are high risk.
Right.
That's what we're gonna give you.
Right.
That's what we think of you.
Yeah.
You know what? Some of them is in the room right now.
Yeah.
There's some of them in here right now. And look, somebody's getting paid up in here. Yeah, somebody's in the room right now. And somebody's getting their thing on right now in spite of all them checks they have. I say, you know what? You don't really know who you're talking to. Right? You're talking that imprisonment mentality, that slave-minded stuff, but you're not talking to me, a free man. Yeah, you know why you ain't clapping? Because it's hard for you to talk freedom talk. You're afraid to talk freedom talk. You've been a slave so long, it's hard for you to talk like a free man. It's hard for you to speak up like a free man. It's hard for you to acknowledge what it means to be free. It's a responsibility. Say responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah, I have accepted my responsibility to live free on my behalf and stand in the gap for you. I ain't scared. You know, come on.
Right.
Pour some water on this man.
Yes, sir.
And the same thing that's in me
Right.
is in
Come
you.
on now.
And all I'm up here trying to do
Right.
is wake that thing up.
Yeah.
Come on, catch fire. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, Manny. Come on now. Come on, Charles. Come on. Woo! Come on. Like, woo! Like that, baby. Come on now. Come on. Come on now. All of a sudden, bam! We got a flame. And it's blazing in here. I don't hear nobody. It's blazing in here.
Right on, man.
So true.
You got to catch fire. You got to catch fire and then come out with it. Be who you say you're going to be.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Having said that, I'm gonna stop right there. Watch it. Don't just live in the shadow.
That's right.
The shadow of yourself. That's my hand, but it couldn't appear there unless I did it. This right here was the guy from over here.
That's okay.
But this guy, what you see right now, this is the guy I pulled out of here.
That's right.
Without my mom or anybody else I said I was looking for, Slick Rick and all them other kind of folks that was up in there making it look good, right? But at the end of the day, you got to go in there and pull that thing out for yourself. To do that, you got to utilize your manpower. Somebody here say manpower. Oh, that ain't loud enough. You scared. You're afraid to say it. You're afraid to say it. Look here. You got to reach down in the well and use your manpower and pull it all the way out of there. Somebody say manpower. Manpower. Now, we got some women in here too and have been victimized and traumatized and abused and unloved. But you know what? You have to go down in there and pull out with all your woman power, your and come on out of the
Dark well.
Even if that Negro got you over there, you're going to have to drop him like he's hot. I'm just telling you the truth. I don't hear nobody in here. Watch this carefully, because if you don't do it, he won't be motivated to get anything done on his own. At some point, you got to cut the umbilical cord and stop feeding him baby food. You can't live on water alone. Sometimes you got to have some meat. You have to cut that thing loose and get the meat of this situation for yourself. And if you don't act like love, if you don't represent love, if you don't sound like love, then don't expect me to give it to you, because unless you are telling me your standard, unless you are setting the bar high for me, then I'm going to come sliding in there with my goodwill and my dark web and steal your joy and steal your thunder, give your babies and leave you for somebody else. I'm just telling you the truth in here. I'm just telling you the truth in here. Say I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
I don't care what they said about. I don't care John McNair. I don't care about none of that stuff.
Right.
I know you a genius. I know what's inside of you. I've been messing with your brain for the last 8 years. I know what's in there. And just a minute, you're going to keep knocking on the door. And a minute, like John Vang, like Will and everybody else, somebody's going to open up that door. Then you walk through that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all right.
They're going to say, ooh. They're going to say, ooh. That boy's from the...
Uh-huh.
Any more like you? That's what I want you to say. When you hear him break down and confess who you really are, that's what I want you to say. Pop guy! On three. 1, 2, 3. Pop guy! Yeah, I like that. I like that. I had enough of y'all. But I just